Right now, though, I want to welcome to the program from the Weekly Standard, Mr. Mark Hemingway. Mark, good evening to you, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
You bet. My pleasure. Thanks for writing about Attorney General Eric Holder and Operation Fast and Furious.
Well, there's no shortage of things to write about.
Now, you say that House Republicans should do their best to get Holder in front of a camera whenever they can. He is really his own worst enemy. This is interesting. A visibly frustrated Attorney General Eric Holder slamming the table when responding to a question about Operation Fast and Furious during a Tuesday budget hearing before the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies. He said that was a fundamentally flawed program. Fundamentally flawed. And I think that I can agree with some of my harshest critics that there are legitimate issues that need to be explored with regard in which the way Fast and Furious was carried out. But I think one thing that also has to be understood is that once this was brought to my attention, I stopped it. I stopped it, Mark Hemingway. Now, granted, it started under my watch, but pay no attention to that, that fact for a moment. I stopped it when I heard about it.
Yeah, that's some strange thing he wants to take credit for there. But again, I'm still sort of baffled by this because he was, he was clearly irritated, again, testifying before Congress, about this. And again, look, I'm sorry, 2 U.S. law enforcement are dead. We still don't have any answers. And he gets agitated that Congress wants to talk to him about this. He did the same thing, a couple of weeks ago when he was called before the House Oversight Committee to testify then. He really just doesn't seem to want to, answer these questions.
Right.
And then today, I'm sure you've already, talked about this, but this story where he released the apology letter to Brian Terry's family to the press before, they had gotten their hands on it. I mean, everything about this just suggests that all he cares about is doing damage control, and the fact that it's an inconvenience for him, has nothing to do with justice or explaining to the American people what happened.
I'll be honest with you, Mark. I after having covered this story for over a year, I am so cynical about this now that I don't even think his outrage is genuine. I don't. I mean, and I will say this: Eric Holder has exhibited more outrage over how he has been treated than outrage over Fast and Furious existence.
That's absolutely true. I mean, as far as I can tell, I see no genuine concern about in any way that they've actually behaved in terms of the conduct or the investigation behind the scandal. That nothing has even approached the passion that Eric Holder has, or urgency that Eric Holder has been expressed when people are questioning his own personal conduct.
Well, absolutely, and so given that he's gotten more upset about that than he has about the operation. You just get this sort of sense of methinks he doth protest too much. He's out there proclaiming that this is all a big witch hunt. Make these little comments like, I think I can agree with some of my harshest critics that there are legitimate issues that need to be explored with regard to the way it was carried out. Well, like what? We've asked the question, so who approved this? And Eric Holder's response is, well, I don't know. We may never know. Now, again, if you really believe that this was a fundamentally flawed program, if you really believe that there are legitimate issues that need to be explored, then why the hell aren't you pounding the table saying, find out who approved this?
Exactly, and we have to remember here, there's still dozens of people in the Justice Department who have not been allowed to talk to congressional investigators. There's still thousands of pages of documents that they've identified that are relevant to the operation that have not been allowed to be released to congressional investigators. There's a lot that he could do. He hasn't done it. Congressional investigators have every right to drag him, dragoon him in front of those panels, every week until, we get some actual answers about, why U.S. law enforcement agents have died. The more I talk about this, the more each new development comes on. I just feel like I'm taking crazy pills. What kind of, corrupt banana republic are we living in here where, people die because, the government is willingly giving, guns to organized crime, and nobody does anything about it. What does rule of law mean anymore if we can't be we can't use the checks and balances at our disposal to expose the corruption and figure out what happened.
Well, absolutely, and I know Representative Issa. We talked with Representative Issa earlier this week, and he talked about the expansion of this investigation. And again, this is something that almost no one has reported on. Cheryl Atkinson with CBS News reported the story, and then it just kind of it fizzled when it really it's another opportunity for Fast and Furious to really have had its awareness raised, or at least its profile raised. Now we know that 2 of the guns that were found at the murder scene of ICE agent Jaime Zapata and his partner Victor Avila, who was wounded in an ambush in Mexico, 2 of these guns were sold to individuals who were under ATF surveillance at the time in Texas, not in Phoenix, Arizona. But apparently the ATF was watching as these guns were purchased, as these guns were transferred. The guns ended up in Mexico as well, and now it looks like there may have been gun walking, not just in Phoenix, Arizona, and not just as part of Operation Fast and Furious, but in other states and in other ATF field offices.
Yeah. Exactly. And how many different law enforcement agents were involved in this? I mean, there's all sorts of things that, the fact that it's been well over a year and we're still consistently finding out new details about the extent to which the government was involved in this is absolutely astonishing. But it also justifies, the tenacious investigators like, ISA and other people that actually are concerned about this, that they should keep plugging away at things. But at the same time, again, what does it tell us about what Eric Holder has done and, the willingness of the Justice Department to, get to the bottom of what happened? Again, I point out that we keep finding out this stuff in, Friday night document dumps the Justice Department willingly is letting out.
Right.
So the question is what do they know that they're not telling us? And again, I just, with the steady, drip of information that's coming out, I mean, the idea that you would look at Holder's defiance and his, angry behavior and all these other things, you wonder what he's being defensive about, what he knows that he's not telling us. And frankly, that scares the living, daylights out of me.
Well, and it should. I mean, because as you point out, 2/3 of the employees at DOJ that Congress has asked to talk to, the Obama administration has said, no, you can't. 64,000 documents have yet to be turned over, and what was it, 5,000 or 15,000 have been turned over? I mean, it's an absurd number that have yet to be turned over. We've still got that supposedly internal investigation that I'm guessing is going to be released, and it'll be a whitewash, maybe closer to the election, depending on how big an issue Fast and Furious turns out to be. But, look, the Obama administration, if they were really interested in clearing this up, this could have been wrapped up months and months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, but the other thing about this is that, the longer this investigation drags on, I mean, what's the big question here with this operation? We all keep coming back to is, why the heck would anyone do this? Why would you give thousands of guns, things like crates of grenades, for crying out loud, to, organized Mexican criminal gangs? Why would you do this? We still don't have an answer to that most basic, fundamental question. And the longer this drags out, the more it suggests that there's some sort of, political motivation behind things. And that's really, terrifying to contemplate, I think, as a citizen. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't some, more basic, reason for the operation, but if they don't want, people to wonder about what's going on, and they don't want this to become a big political issue, a big political headache, I mean, they need to come clean, because otherwise it looks like they're hiding something, and they're just making it worse for themselves. So, the choices are that they're either just incredibly incompetent or there's something incredibly sinister going on, and I don't think either of those options are particularly inspiring for citizens who are looking at this and demanding accountability.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mark. Listen, I appreciate you coming on the program, sir. Have a great weekend. Hope we can do this again very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks again.